Hey everyone, it's Kelly from Zilly Moon Quilting Co. Today we're going to talk about this pattern. Some of you may have seen it on Instagram or Facebook, or if you subscribe to our newsletter, you saw it there. Today we're going to show you how to do this design here, as well as the center part using Kite. As far as the flowers, so you can see those up here in the corner, backwards, sorry, in the corner here, I've used the drop set, and there is a video on drop, so I won't be going ahead and showing you that, but I will be showing you this other little area here with drop right there. It's hard to see on the camera, so I'll actually post a picture of that in the video here so you can see exactly what we're doing. As well, you'll actually, I'm going to show you how to stitch that using drop drop one, sorry, rather. So we'll be doing that today. So thanks for joining us. Like I said, we'll be using Kite today and drop. And if you're interested in this pattern, it is by Holly Clark. And if you're on Instagram, her handle is Hold My Seam Ripper, which I thought was quite clever. Hold My Seam Ripper. So go ahead and check her out. She's an awesome Canadian pattern designer, and this is one of her latest. So go ahead and check it out. And we'll be back in 1 second to show you how to stitch these super cool designs using our newest Kite ruler. Okay, we're going to do the part of the quilt where there's the 4-patch in the center now. So you can see here we've got our Kite ruler. And for anyone that's interested in the other designs on Kite, there is a video which we'll link in the description down below to show you the basics of Kite and what it's supposed to do. But this is just a couple different designs that we've created or been able to play with Kite. So you'll see here I've got my sticky tape on there that comes with all of our rulers. It's included in the package. And that will give you a nice good grip, especially when you're working on your domestic machine. I actually use the sticky tape as well on my long arm for when I'm working on designs like this. If I'm using, say, our Edgy 6 for Stitch in the Ditch on my long arm, I won't necessarily use sticky tape, but I always use it when I'm trying to create a specific design in a specific area because that makes sure that everything stays in the right spot. So I've got my quilting gloves on here. I've got my ruler foot on my Juki. I'm using the TL 2010Q today. So I'm going to bring my ruler foot to the center of where this 4-patch is. And this 4-patch measures 7.5 inches square, which is what it measures on the quilt. So you'll get a true idea of how I did it on the quilt. I'm going to drop my needle down. I'm going to put my ruler foot down and just check my height. And I seem to be pretty good there. So I'm going to bring my ruler foot down, or my needle down, and hold my top thread and bring up my bobbin thread so that I don't end up with a nest on the back. And I'm going to drop my foot there, and I'm going to just bring that, I like to see that bottom thread come out the bottom as well. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to drop my needle or my ruler foot again. I'm going to do a couple locking stitches there just to make sure everything's nice and secure when I carry on stitching. So then to use Kite or any ruler of ours that has a little slit on there in your domestic machine, what you want to do is you want to lift up your ruler foot, and your needle is in the down position. So you want to always keep your needle in the downward position. And I want to just slide that ruler under there, and the needle goes through that little slot. Then I want to make sure that I'm good and clear of that spot and bring my ruler or my ruler foot back down. Then this little notch that's here on in the ruler, we want our ruler foot to fit in there nicely. We don't want to pull it. We don't want to open this gap. So we want to make sure that that ruler foot just sits in there nicely like that. And then at this end, we want to rotate the ruler so that the center here, which is marked on the ruler, is in line with the square or straight across from where our needle is. So it's lined up in that, where these two lines, the 90-degree lines, meet in that corner. Okay, so then we want to hold on to our ruler. Now I'm going to turn this just a bit so you can see a little bit better. But remember, the joy of ruler work is we can work in any direction we want. So you don't need to turn the quilt. So I'm going to hold on to that nice and snug, and I typically will put my sticky tape where I want my fingers to rest. So I'm going to put my finger and my thumb there and hold on to it. I want to put gentle pressure on my fabric and hold it taut. I don't want to pull it tight. So I'm going to hold that, and I'm just going to simply guide my ruler foot along that edge of kite. When I get to the corner, I will actually take an extra stitch. So I'll pause for a second there, and that means that I will end up with a nice sharp point in that corner. Otherwise, it's very tempting and easy to go around that corner and end up with a rounded design in the corner. And that will bring me back exactly to where I was before. So now you can see I've done 1/4 of that. So I'm just going to keep my ruler right where it is, and I'm just going to rotate my ruler so that now my line is lined up in that next corner, in the next quadrant. And again, I'm going to, you can either turn it or you can hold on to it and go straight. And I'm going to take a pause when I get to that center point just to give me, let's speed up here a little bit. And remember, if you speed up your speed with your foot, you need to speed up with your hands to make sure that you're creating consistent stitches, which is what we're aiming for. So I'm just going to rotate that. So you can see there we've filled 2 of the quadrants with that. And I'm going to rotate this so that you can see it. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to move that thread out of the way there. And the remaining 2 corners. And remember, you're holding your fabric taut, not tight. You don't want to pull it. You don't want to pull it open if you've got stitches there. Take a slight pause in those intersections where we nest in there with our ruler foot, and then back to the center and stop. And then one more time, and that will fill our 4 quadrants. Again, I'm turning this so you can see it. If I was working when I do this on my domestic machine on a bigger quilt, I try not to turn it. Sometimes you really need to, but for the most part, you should be able to do this entire design without turning your quilt. And then back to my center. So then what we've done is, if you look at the quilt, we've created like an S that goes along here. And all I've done is used this edge of kite to create that. And that creates that little S in there perfectly. So I've taken the ruler out from underneath my foot. I'm going to now hook this end in, and I need to come up here and measure here. Now, if you happen to have a dude, which looks like this, we have several different colors available, but the advantage to dude is this little arm here is 1/4 inch. So that will be able to tell me exactly where I need to be here to line up and end up in the right spot. If you don't have one, you can certainly fudge it, and you can actually use this line here in line there with your point is pretty darn accurate, and you can adjust it as you need to. So I'm going to do a double check with dude. So that 1/4 inch arm of dude measures against my ruler to my point there, and that tells me where I need to be. So I'm going to hold on to my ruler, I'm going to hold on to my quilt, and again I'm holding it taut. I haven't moved the needle point here, and I'm just going to start stitching up and follow that edge of the ruler until I reach that point, which will be conveniently right where that nests. And now I'm going to make sure I hold securely onto my ruler, and I can double back down that same line to my center, and it just looks like a heavier stitch line. So that's how that looks. And then you just keep doing the exact same thing, keeping this center in here again, and you're rotating again to the next one, and you can line up that edge, or if you want, you can do a double check with dude just to make sure that you end up right in the correct spot. You're going to hold your ruler nice and secure and your fabric, and then you're going to stitch up until that point again, and then you're going to stitch back down the other way. And then we've got one more here. And again, you can try to do this without rotating your quilt. That would be ideal. It's a little easier for the camera if I rotate it. You're going to hold everything nice and secure. And by not moving that ruler, you will end up back on top of the same line you just stitched. Again, I'm going to do another quick double check. I like to double check with Dude. I just find it a little bit more convenient and a little bit like a safety net, I guess. And then back up to the point, and then back down the other way. And then there we go. There's our first design. So that's how we do that in a corner. That's the center part of that block. Just going to break my thread there to show you how that looks. And then you can see I have to turn my threads or bury them. And you can see that that's how that looks for the center block of the Hold My Seam Ripper pattern that I've shown at the beginning of this video. And now we're going to show you a couple of the other designs. The next design we're going to do with Kite is the one that you see in the white part of the quilt. So where I've changed thread color to match the area around it. So it's kind of a geometric design. And this is the design that you could easily do repeatedly in a border. And it's way easier than it looks, I promise. It's very similar to what we just did. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So you can see here, I've got a line drawn on my fabric. And this is just to indicate the center of what would be my strip. And it can be whatever size you want. This will fit in wherever you want. You just want that center line to make sure that you stay nice and square. So if you've got a strip that you're going to put this in, you want to just mark your center so you can make sure your ruler stays nice and square. So I'm going to come to this point and I'm going to pull up my thread at this point of the quilt. And I would typically start in the center of my border. I started in the center of my strip on the quilt. And I'm going to do a couple locking stitches and lift my ruler foot again, slide my ruler underneath. I've got my sticky tape still on there. When I bring my ruler under my foot, I'm going to give myself lots of clearance so I'm not hitting the edge of it. And then I'm going to pull my ruler towards me. I'm then going to line up on this end the little center mark again on my center seam. So where before I was using it in the corner over when we did the one before, this one I'm going to use in my center in line with my needle there. And I'm going to hold on to my ruler. Again, I'm holding my fabric taut using this part of my hand. And I'm just going to simply follow it around. And I'm going to take a pause when I reach that point, just to get a nice sharp point. And then that comes back, we'll end up back in the same spot. So what we want to do at this point is you have a couple options. You can do the same design all the way using the same direction. But what I like to do at this point is I'll take my ruler. I don't lift my ruler foot. I just turn my ruler around and I slide it back. So now the top is in that little notch on the foot. So the top is at the bottom. So it's the opposite of what I just did. And then I look at this end and I make sure that I'm centered. You've got a pretty good eye. You can see where you're centered. And also, if you are working in a block that has a cross line, you've got a line across here that tells you where your needle is. So this line across here is in line with where your needle is. So if you're really super concerned about how you want this to be square, you can have a line across there that will line that up. I'm going to hold on to the ruler here again. And now I'm going to go the same direction, pausing in my corners. And that will bring me down to the point where I match that point, and I'm going to pause for a second just so I make sure I get a nice sharp point, and then come back up the other direction and stop there, and then come back to there, and I'm back to where I started. So that gives me my design that looks like this. So that is 1/2 of the design that you see in the quilt. So then all I need to do is repeat the design using that same center point again. So I'm going to turn this so you can see it. So you can see here I've turned this and I'm lining up this direction. holding everything nice and secure. Taking a pause there. And then back to my center point. And then I'm going to rotate my ruler again. Those threads out of the way. Nest back in there. Make sure I'm lined up, centered there. And I'm going to hold on to the ruler again and go the other direction. I'm going to break my thread there just to show you. So that creates a nice symmetrical design just like that. So then what I did in the design in the quilt that you saw at the beginning is I used the edge here, just like we did in the one previously, to go down the center to create that center part, okay? So we started here and then went back up. Now, if you were to do this design in a long area, you've now reached this point and you're in the center point, you need to travel to the next end so that you can do this design repeated over and over again. So that's where this comes in really handy. So if you do your first one and you do your second one and then you travel, if I'd started here, I would have started and ended here. So I start and end here, and then I use this edge to travel down to here. Then I do my next one, and I use that edge to travel down to here and continue on along there. So I can repeatedly do this border design without having to break thread. So I can repeat this over and over again. You just need to think about where you start. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do my one triangle going this way, or kite shape to here. Then I'm going to flip my ruler and I'm going to do it the other direction. And then, excuse me, I'm going to use the edge of kite, do it if you choose, to come down my center to this point here, just like we did in the first one. And then I'm going to repeat the design over and over again. And that's how you can create that design quite easily over a long border. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a second and then I'm going to show you the one thing we didn't show you in the drop video about this quilt. So we've linked to the drop video which shows how to nest them all and do all of the drop 1, 2, and 3 all together. But if you notice on this quilt that we showed you, there's an area where between the big flowers, there's a flower that looks kind of like an inside-out flower, I guess. So I'm going to show you how to do that because we didn't show you how to do the video, so that if you do purchase these rulers and make this quilt, you can complete all of these designs together. So we're using drop 1. So again, we're going to do the same thing. I've lifted my ruler foot. I'm going to bring my needle down into the center here. I'm going to bring my thread up. Good habit to get into. I have to admit, I don't always do that when I'm practicing, just because I'm not worried what the back looks like on a practice quilt. I'm going to do a couple locking stitches. I'm then going to lift my ruler foot and I'm going to slide my ruler underneath and make sure that I'm well clear of the sides so that I can bring my ruler back down again. So with this one, with the actual drop design that we showed you, we actually did this. We had our ruler where we did the drop this way. This design, we're going to do it the opposite. So I'm going to rotate my ruler. Let's thread out of there. I'm going to rotate my ruler so that now this line that goes across here, move that over there so you can see that, hopefully light. This line that goes across here, that's in line with my needle. So that is in line with my center going this way. And I want to again make sure that I'm squared up there. And I can do that by turning this around and I can see that this line here is in line. So I need to reference this line here to make sure I'm on my crosshair, and align this way and align that way. That is going to line me up and I can hold everything nice and secure and I make sure that I'm centered there. So if you can just look in behind your ruler foot and see that. That works as well. So I want to come down here and then back to the center. So it's the same sort of concept as the original drop design, but we're using the opposite direction. So I'm holding my ruler. You can see I've got my sticky tape on there. I'm holding my ruler. I'm going to back that out just a little bit. I'm holding my ruler, a couple stitches, and then I'm going to come back down into where my ruler foot nests in that circle. And it's advisable to keep your fingers on here because you don't want this spreading open. Okay, so keep your fingers on either side of this gap and then go back the other way. And then we're back where we started. I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to trim those just so that they're not visible so you can see better. And then I'm going to rotate my ruler to the next line there. And I can do this looking here at my marked line and here at my marked line to make sure that I'm in line with the crosshair that's on my quilt. If you don't have a crosshair, I advise you draw it. It's just a little bit easier. In the quilt that I did, there was actually a seam there, so I didn't have to actually draw it. But if you don't have one, then you want to make sure that you draw it. And then you want to come back the other way. And that brings you back to your center again. And then I'm going to rotate it again, lining up this side and that side to make sure that I'm nice and square. And it doesn't matter whether you go left or right, it makes no difference. And I'm going to stop when I get to the center again and rotate it one more time, lining up those 3 points, and then just double checking that my gap is the same at this end, the open end. So this in itself, just going to lift this out so you can see what it looks like, creates kind of a neat design, right? Just like that. But we want to add something in these 4 sections as well. So I'm going to lift this back up again. So again, we're starting in the center. But what I want to do, and I'm going to go this way so it's easier for you to see. If you see this line here, this engraved line that's on the ruler, hopefully that shows up. That engraved line that's right there. I want that line to be touching where these 2 loops intersect. So the line that's on here, sorry, the lighting's making it difficult for you to see that, but this line here, it goes through by the U and the I on quilting in the quilt or in the ruler. So that line I want to be in line there, and that is actually going to line me up on the other side. So I don't need to draw a full cross grid again going the other direction. I can just hold my ruler now once I've lined that up, and I can go back this way. And make sure you go right into that little nest. And that will bring me back to my center. Then I'm going to rotate my ruler so that that line is now in line with the next one. And just do a double check to make sure it looks like, yes, I'm halfway between those 2. And you can do this with any size drop. It doesn't need to be drop 1. If you have a bigger area that you want to do the same flower, you can absolutely do that with the different size drops. And then I'm going to rotate one more. It's in behind here so you can't really see it. Turn this way so you can see. So you want to make sure that you're lining up on these 2, where these 2 intersect. Don't use the one that you've already done, and you just take a quick look behind and make sure that you're centered. And that will bring you back around this way. And again, you can go left or right, doesn't matter, it's whatever your preference is. I tend to try to go both ways because it makes it for good practice when you get stuck in a corner and need to go both ways. And then you can see here, I've got one more that I need to do. So I'm going to rotate my ruler so that I'm lined up between these 2. And I'm going to hold on to my ruler so my line is right there. And yes, it looks like I'm halfway between there. going to come there. And I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to break that thread so you can see what it looks like. Move my ruler out of the way. And that's what we end up with, this really cool design. Now remember, like I said, you can do this with the other rulers too if you want to have that design in a bigger area. So it's just a really fun way to do drop. So thanks for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed learning how to quilt this quilt. Like I said, I will link the how to do the drop and the basics of kite in this video down below. So then you will be able to see just a few other designs that you can do. And stay tuned because we'll be doing more, but I think you'll agree that drop and kite are great additions to your quilting toolbox and quite easily work. I mean, they work absolutely perfectly with this Holly Clark quilt. It's called Dialogue Cabin. It is a super fun beginner quilt if you're looking for something that goes together quick, you're just learning, and as you can see, these rulers work absolutely perfectly to do that. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and comment down below, or if you just have a comment on the video itself, we would love to hear from you. And thanks so much for stopping by and checking us out. Have an awesome day.